Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, my name is Courtney and today I've got 6 all new fall DIYs for you, including another Dollar Tree mini project. I can't wait to show you what I made today, so let's get into today's video. For this project, I wanted to make a sign, but the kicker here is I wanted to do a sign that has not been overdone. I just feel like there's those signs out there, if you know what I'm talking about, the autumn skies, pumpkin pies, and pumpkin. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but I really wanted to try to do something different. So I just went on the internet, started searching fall phrases, and I found one that I really liked. And so what I'm doing here, of course, my favorite thing is I'm taking a Hobby Lobby sign that, yes, I got on clearance. This is honestly one of my biggest tips I can give you is if you have a Hobby Lobby or a Michael's or something like that around you, Joann's, go when the stuff is on clearance and buy it, because especially with wood prices right now, this is definitely the cheaper way to make a really nice looking sign. So I just took this and then I decided to go ahead and tape off the frame, and then I just painted over this blue skies and country sunshine part, and I used the Moss Waverly chalk paint, and I ended up painting 2 coats. For the wording on the sign, I went ahead and used my Cricut. I went into Cricut Design Space and just created a design. I went through the tons and tons of fonts. I knew that for the phrase, which is small seeds of gratitude will produce a harvest of hope, that I wanted gratitude and harvest of hope to be a different font. So like I said, I just scrolled and scrolled, messed around with it, created my design, and from there I went ahead and printed it out on my Cricut, and then I went to weed it. Now, I will share one tip. If you do happen to have a Cricut with white vinyl, it really helps if you have a light box of some type. I just ordered this one on Amazon. I will link it down below along with this design that I created and a printable, all in the description box down below for you if you're interested in that. And I went ahead and just printed it out, weeded it, got it all ready to put on top of my sign. This next little project is my next little mini project. You guys really liked my Dollar Tree wagon that I made last year, as well as the little shadow box. If you didn't catch that video, I will link it down below. So this is the next one. These are going to complement the sign that I just made. So for this, you're going to need to pick up some pumpkins. You can pick up all the pumpkins at Dollar Tree. Now those green ones that I just put aside, those actually came from Hobby Lobby, but they're the same size as these orange ones from Dollar Tree. So the first step here was I didn't quite like the color of the orange pumpkin, so I'm going to take some Monarch paint by Folkart and go ahead and paint over these with about 2, I think I'd end up doing 2 coats on top of the pumpkins. Now you probably recognize this little pot if you are a Dollar Tree fan. This is what the succulents come in. I know they have them in white and they have in black. I think they have dark red. So I had 2 of these, and what I'm doing is I'm just taking some truffle colored paint from Waverly, and I just went in and right here, I'm just brushing it to try to give this kind of a wood look. It was just a 1 coat brush on all 4 sides, and I called it good. Now I was ready to assemble these cute little planters. So the first step was to take some Dollar Tree moss, and I just hot glued it down directly on top of the styrofoam. Then taking some bamboo skewers from Dollar Tree, I trimmed them down and I made pumpkin kebabs. I slid all 3 of the pumpkins on there. I just felt like instead of hot gluing the pumpkins to each other, this was just a much sturdier option. If you wanted to make this more of like a topiary type thing, this would be another option. You could do a little moss ball in between each of the pumpkins. You could raise it up out of the planter. Lots of options as far as the look that you want to go for, but that's what I did. I just did that. I did not hot glue any of the pumpkin, like the bottom pumpkin, down to the moss. I just simply skewered them, slammed my pumpkin kebab down into the planter, and it was good to go. Now, if you like pie, you're gonna love this next Dollar Tree DIY. If you don't like pie, but you do like to label foods when you entertain in your kitchen, then you're probably still gonna really like this DIY. I picked up this 4-pack of these, they're calling them harvest pins. They had tons for the fall as well as the Halloween. I pretty much picked up every one that they had, so you're gonna be seeing these kind of worked in to DIYs in the next few months. Now for the pies, they were all apple pies, and I didn't really want that apple hump or whatever that is sticking up on these, so I just sketched out kind of the natural line of the pie, and then I went with my hobby knife and just trimmed off that extra wood on the pieces. I was ready now to create my pies, so I took some white paint and I'm going to use that for the pie pan, and I just kind of freehand this. I painted the bottom of each of these pies with about 2 or 3 coats of the white paint, and then from there I wanted to make each of my different types of pies. So I did one on the top orange for pumpkin pie, one I did brown for pecan pie, and then one I did kind of a tannish color for apple pie. Now I was ready to apply my little decal stickers that I made to label my pies. I did one for pumpkin, pecan, and apple in Cricut Design Space. I just typed them out, and I chose the font Barn Acre, which I thought was kind of funny because, you know, pumpkins and pecans and apples are on a farm, and a barn has a farm. Okay, you get what I'm saying. Anyway, once all of these labels were applied to my little pies, I was ready to do a little bit of detail work on them. So to do that, I just grabbed my Arteza markers that you guys have seen me use many times, and I started with the light gray, and I went and just kind of defined the pan a little bit. And then for the apple pie and the pecan pie, I took a brown marker and I went ahead and just did a little bit of accents at the top of each of those pies. Now for the pumpkin pie, I was thinking, ooh, I'm gonna add a white pom-pom ball and do whipped cream. Well, I put it on there and I don't know what, I wasn't feeling it. And then I thought, ooh, I'm gonna be extra, and I'm gonna take some of the Dollar Tree caulk and I'm gonna make a little fake whipped cream. Well, I didn't have any, and so you definitely could add a little dollop of whipped cream if you wanted to kind of enhance that pumpkin one, or you just leave it plain. It's up to you. But here you go. You've got yourself some labels for those fall and Thanksgiving pies. Now for this next DIY, I wanted to make a garland. So I had some red and brown burlap leaves left over from Dollar Tree last year, and I decided I wanted to do some kind of iron-on letters on the leaves. So I opted to just go ahead and type out the word harvest in Cricut Design Space, and I ended up making my letters 1.5 inches wide and 2 inches tall. And the one thing you have to remember about iron-on is when you go to print it, you just have to toggle on that mirror on image so that it will print correctly on your vinyl. So once I got my harvest printed out, I just used brown vinyl. I was ready to go ahead and attach it. So I heated up my leaf a little bit, put my letter down, pressed it the 30 seconds, and ironed it on there. Now, because the burlap is kind of bumpy, the vinyl in a few spots had a little bit of kind of texture looking to it, but it wasn't something that was super noticeable or that bothered me. So I thought, you know what, this is gonna look fine. It's gonna look great. So once I got those all ironed on, I was ready to go ahead and work on my little acorns that I wanted to use to kind of amp up this garland. Now these acorns came from Hobby Lobby last year, but last week I saw Dollar Tree and they had bags of the wooden acorns, so they definitely have them with their fall stuff if you can find them there. If not, Hobby Lobby always has them. So what I'm taking here is just some washi tape, and I am just taping off the little caps of these acorns, and then taking some brown wax, I'm going to go ahead and paint one coat all over the tops of the acorns. Okie dokie then, now you're seeing the acorns on top of this board because I thought I had a brilliant idea. And that idea was to take my Dremel and drill holes through the acorns so that I could just thread them on to my twine. Yeah, no, I couldn't. The Dremel slipped, it was not pretty, and it ended with me thinking, why in the world am I going to take my hand off? And I didn't want to make a big production by going and getting the drill and doing it that way, so I went with Plan B. Plan B are these alligator clips. These clips actually came off of pumpkins from last year, if you'll remember. In fact, they have them this year, but it's the little pumpkins from Dollar Tree that have the alligator clips. Yeah, I pretty much save everything. I'm using those to attach to my acorns. It worked out great. I took some hot glue. I glued these on. You can't see them. They position perfectly on the backs of the acorns. So this was a win, even though it started off a little scary with that Dremel. Now I'm ready to assemble my garland, and for this I'm just going to use a piece of twine, and I am just going to clip my leaves. They have that wire on the background, so I just clipped them over, but then I took the acorn and stuck it at the top of the leaf. That actually helped it stay in place, so it worked out really well. Now when I did that, it is top heavy, and if you were to hang it up, these leaves are gonna kind of lean forward a little bit. So to fix that, I flipped my leaves over and I went ahead and just hot glued my twine across the back, still towards the top, but just centering it in between the top two leaves, if that makes sense. I just ran glue there and it worked out great. For this Dollar Tree DIY, I grabbed a pack of their wooden apples, and for it I grabbed 2 different types of red scrapbook paper as well as 2 different types of brown scrapbook paper. So for 3 of the apples, I traced them on one of the pieces of red, and the other 2 were traced on the other red. And then the top part, where it is technically a stem and a leaf, I decided just to keep the whole thing brown because I'm trying to keep this more fall themed, and I traced again the same thing, 2 of the brown ones or 2 of the apples on one of the brown, and then 3 on the other. Now that it's all cut out, I took my apple pieces and I went ahead and trimmed off the top part because I had traced over that. And then I took my brown scrapbook paper and I went ahead and just used a glue stick and glued that down first to the apple, and then I glued the red scrapbook paper. Then taking this sticker sheet from Dollar Tree of these 3D stickers, I took the CIDER and I painted it with some brown paint. I ended up painting about 3 coats over the stickers, and then I stuck them directly to the apples. The last step here was to take my apples and go ahead and hot glue them together, and then I took a piece of twine and made a bow and attached it to the D, and then it was just a matter of finding the right container to attach my sign to. For this DIY, you're going to need two things, some beads and some yarn. This is also something that could become a multi-seasonal piece, and I'll tell you how to do it. It's super simple. So right here, this is just a beaded garland that I made. I strung up random different beads on it, different sizes, no super pattern to it. And here I've picked up some fall colored yarn. They all came from Dollar Tree. Now you'll notice the yellow one says just cotton and not just yarn. I don't end up using the yellow because it wasn't the same texture and thickness, and basically it just wasn't the same yarn as the others. So I'm just gonna go with the orange, brown, and green. Now for this, I'm gonna make some really large tassels, and to do that, I just have a piece of cardboard here. This was about 8 inches tall, and I'm taking my yarn and I'm just wrapping it around there 40 times. Once I've done that, it's just making a standard tassel. But for this is how you're going to make this to be able to be a multi-seasonal piece. So take your tassel, wrap it around, and tie it off at the top. Now before you make your little knob, what you're actually going to do is take your tassel and wrap it around one of the beads. Then just take another piece of yarn and tie it off around the bead at the base of the bead, and that tassel will just hang nicely on that bead. Now to make it multi-seasonal, all you'll have to do is just snip off that piece of yarn that you tied at the base of the bead, and then save these. You can do so many different colors, and it will take no time at all to change out this beaded garland for all kinds of different seasons. So you could make red and green for Christmas, you could do pink, red, and white, you could do patriotic, and again, you're just using the same thing, and all you have to do to change it with the seasons is just then take your clumps of yarn, wrap it around a bead, and then just take another string and tie it off at the base. There you go, another round of fall DIYs for you. Let me know down below in the comments which one of these was your favorite. Also, let me know if you're like me, when you go to break down things, you save all the parts because you just never know. Or perhaps maybe you'd throw them away. I'd love to know that too. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to be bringing you a craft studio update video very, very soon. Here are some more videos you might enjoy, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!